this was tonight's topic actually was like Henry Lee's idea, where, I was trying to think of a speaker, and it's been a while since we networked, or it's hard to get together in person. So I thought, why don't we do a meeting where we all share information and things that we've learned with each other? And there's a lot of controversial things that are happening right now in the Mac market. So I thought, or in the publishing market. So I thought that would be good to discuss. So that's kind of what the goal is for this evening, is just to do a chat. If we want to do any breakout rooms or anything like that afterwards, we can, or just stay and talk for a while. But it's kind of a social evening. So I guess I'd like to maybe start with introductions, and then we'll go right into the conversation. Maybe I'll do some business when maybe I'll talk about some upcoming meetings once we get done with that. At least the introductions, so more people can come in. So why don't you go ahead and start, Marvin, with introducing yourself, since you have to leave early.
Okay, Marvin Sable. I've been doing graphic design, starting with PageMaker and Quark until they became obnoxious. I stopped upgrading after CS6. CS6 did everything I needed to do, so I saw no reason to pay a monthly subscription. I am now using Affinity, the suite, which I would recommend to anybody. It's right now version 2 of their 3-piece suite is like $99, and it's purchase outright, and it includes the Mac versions and the iPad versions of all 3 components.
Doesn't it include Windows versions too?
I don't know. Is it Windows too?
Yeah,
yes,
Henry's saying yes. So.
And it's on special now. But the advantage is you can get a 30-day trial, a full working trial, and you can convert your InDesign file to, what is it, INDD?
Mm-hmm.
And then open it, so you can see on your own system with your own files what it will do, how it works on an InDesign file, basically.
Might be IDML, might be.
It is IDML, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd recommend it. At least get the 30-day trial, and then you can see what it does. I love it. I absolutely love it. Henry, you must use it too.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you have to leave, Marvin, because I don't want to make that the only part of the evening tonight that we talk about, but I'd like to discuss it, a little bit more. I do know that with the previous version, if you went and just did a trial, like as a regular consumer, it was 7 days. And if you went to the commercial business part of the site, it's 30 days. So even though you're not even if you're getting a trial for you as an individual, go to the business section of the site, and you can get the 30-day trial. So you have more time to try it out. Plus you could probably game it and sign up for another one with a second email address and get 30 more days if you needed to.
When I did it, it was 30 and 90. The 90 was harder to find, but when I Googled Affinity 90 days, it came up. So
Really?
And I didn't need 90. I fell in love with it almost immediately.
Can CDPUG take responsible for getting you into Affinity because of the program we did for that?
Absolutely. And Marksware, because Marksware, if you're done with InDesign, Marksware converts the InDesign files to IDML that you can then open with Affinity.
Okay, so that program is on the CDPUG. There's a bunch of stuff I'll talk about, but that's actually on the YouTube page. So it's probably still useful. I mean, obviously it's not the version 2, but the Affinity demonstration and the Q&A about converting, the utility for converting InDesign files will be on that YouTube video.
That's the easy. That's really easy. That's the least of anyone's worry.
Marvin, hi. That's very interesting. I have 2 questions about that. A, how does it compare to the Adobe suite? The performance capabilities wise. And then B, I was going to mention either you or this group, since it's a nonprofit, you can probably get a license to the Adobe Suite at a lesser cost if you're affiliated with a nonprofit or some sort of educational, student discounts they offer right now, if that helps.
You can get Creative Cloud with an educational discount, but you have to have an edu email address.
Okay.
So it's a little bit hard, it's not as
Okay.
convenient. I mean, you can do it, but you really need to qualify. So I guess if you have someone who's has a college student, in their family or something, there's ways to do that. But normally I would just say get a subscription or try the Affinity software instead. Because the Affinity software is like under $100, I think, for the whole thing. And that's
$99.99 plus tax.
it's a one-time cost.
How does it compare? Because I mean, it's not just
I think
Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator we're talking about. It's all the other, apps too. I'm just curious.
Oh, right. Well, it depends what your workflow is like. It's photo, designer, and publisher. So you got the main three.
Does it have anything to do with video?
So it's like
No.
Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, basically.
Right.
Those three. And how does it compare function-wise and capability-wise?
I have not found anything that I'm not able to do with Affinity, and it's more seamless, I think.
How about then content-aware removal kind of things for photo, like the photo editing? So it doesn't do that. Henry, you want to say anything? You want to speak up on this since in fact, why don't you introduce yourself, Henry? And then you can maybe answer some questions about that since and I don't know how much I know content-aware removal is really cool and that's new. That's kind of new in Photoshop, but I don't know how important that is. And you can subscribe to Photoshop only for $10 a month. So you can you can mix and match. So, and Henry, I don't know if your microphone's working or not, because it looked like you were moving your lips, but I didn't hear anything.
It's like a Japanese movie, isn't it? Pretty cool, huh?
Let me get my little thing of Godzilla here. I can include that in the Zoom meeting if you want.
Yeah. Well, for those who
Oh yeah, you just we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Now we can.
We can.
We're good.
My name is Henry Lee. For those of you who do not know who I am, I'm a longtime CDPUG member, but I've also been in the publishing business for well over 30 plus years. I started off as an industrial designer, went to packaging, and it ended up in the printing industry as a side gig, which ended up being a 30-year side gig. And
Henry, you're sounding really muted for me again. It's like I don't know if everybody else is the same way.
Breaking up.
It's the same.
Well, I know I'm using a new setup at the office, so I'll try to do my best to make sure that you guys can hear me. Is this better?
That's better. Yes.
Okay, good. So as long as I don't move my head, like Max Headroom, for those of you who are old enough to remember.
Just gonna say that.
About 3 weeks ago, and I ended up at a new company called Partners here in Cleveland, in the Midtown section. But I still retain a lot of institutional knowledge that I have. And I'm using Affinity for quite a long time, for about 5 years now. And for those who are not, who have a lot of questions about Affinity, I would say that Affinity is catching up slowly to Adobe. We can do about 85% of what Adobe Creative Suite does, specifically for those who use Illustrator, Photoshop, and also InDesign. That's what it was meant to be, to compete against and also to replace. Its subscription model.
To replace, like maybe compete.
It is a one-time purchase. However, you do need to purchase each major update because the cost is so low. They won't give you an upgrade pricing. So if you buy the entire suite right now, it'll allow you to use it on multiple devices, on multiple platforms. So you can use it on an iOS device like an iPad. You have Publisher, Design, and Photo. All three, they will run on an iPad, believe it or not. So you can leave your desktop at home if you wanted to, but you also can run it on a Mac OS device, or you can install it on a Windows device. So for a one-time cost of about $100, which is probably what you would have to pay out in about 2 months with Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. You would have primarily the three major applications you would have. Version 2 offers major improvements to the original version, speed, and also compatibility with the M1 Max. So I'm just letting you know, so for those of you who are trying to make that change over to the M1 Max, now there's a better reason. Plus, it works with the Pantone library. It's got the full suite in there, so you don't have to worry about digging around and playing fishing contests with Pantone. So you can continue to work and do your workflow with whoever your service provider is. And I would say it has the ability to export multiple formats. So as long as you can export to a PDF format, you can continue to do everything that you've done up to this point with InDesign. The one thing it does not have, which Adobe Creative Cloud has over the Affinity Suite, is what do you call it? AI, the artificial intelligence factor. That means creative ways of deleting and filling in content and other stuff that goes on that needs the AI to fulfill some of the other functions in Illustrator for some of the new features. Like one of the new features is called spline. I don't know if you folks have used that, but if you've ever had to draw a circle within another circle like that, you'd have to do cut, paste, scissor, and then connect the parts and pieces. Now there's only one function now, one step that you can do that in the Adobe Creative Cloud suite because of the artificial intelligence factor. So you click on that tool and you can create a whole line of chain link fences like this without having to go through all those different steps. And that's true for Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. So there are going to be some differences in terms of plugins and also in terms of how it approaches like layers, blending, the whole 9 yards. But beyond that, if you're using the core functions like table content, bookmarking, master pages, your basic drawing features, wake-up tablets, and functionality, everything is there. You just got to get used to looking for the tools in a different place. But it maps pretty well, and most of the keyboard shortcuts in there will relate to how you use them currently in the Creative Cloud. Does that help you, Dave?
Yeah, very, very, very thorough description. Thank you very much.
I could think of a few things to add.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question for Henry. Like Henry, are they still selling version 1 or is that gone?
No, it's still available. For those who have purchased it, it's still available for download. You can contact customer support at Affinity because you can't really use Affinity 2 on anything less than I think Big Sur right now on the Mac. So you couldn't even go to version 2 if you had a Mac.
Yeah, that was one of the things about Affinity I thought was interesting. You could run it on a current Mac, but you could like go back as far as like Snow Leopard or like, it was almost like you could go back to the old original like Mac from 1984. Like it really went far back with hardware that it supported and operating system. So it was really, if someone has a really old computer and doesn't want to buy a new one, that would work for that. It's been probably 2 years since they came out with the last version, so you figure it's probably, I mean, you can't,
Affinity?
you can figure it might be 2 more years before they come out with another upgrade again.
That's a long time.
That's just a guess. Well, it's really
in the software world.
Yeah, I mean, they're
that's
just
intriguing. Do you know who the company is? Anyone? Who the company behind it is?
Affinity.
Here's Affinity.
Affinity.serif.com.
It's a European company and they've been around. I think they're not brand new. They've been around for a while.
So kind of like a sketch, if you're all familiar with that.
The way I think of it is it's like if you are a freelancer and you have your own clients, it's fine. If you have to share files like in an enterprise, you probably still have to use Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
If you're doing like you have your own customers and you're not really collaborating, it's fine. Like that's really where it fits. And there probably are some businesses where it's suitable, but it's not, if you work with like, the Cleveland Clinic or something like that, or American Greetings, are not going to use it. But, there's certain places where it makes sense and can save you money.
Yeah, it's really intriguing. I was just
Gotta
reading
go to my babysitting job. I'll watch the rest of it on tape.
All right, see you, Marvin.
Right.
babysitting. Okay.
Bye, Marvin.
I don't know if y'all read that. I think it was sometime this either this week or last week was the 40th anniversary of Adobe. Anybody note that or see that?
I saw that article on your LinkedIn page from Fast Company,
Yeah.
but I haven't not read it yet, but it looked like it was pretty
Very
interesting.
interesting. I didn't realize because I saw one of the topics on your agenda tonight was about that they're retiring support for Postscript fonts type 1, and apparently that's how they got started. I didn't realize that they developed the first Postscript for the Apple printers back in 1986. I think is when they started, and then they came out with in order. I think it was first program was Illustrator, then Photoshop, maybe Acrobat. I didn't realize that history was very interesting. But to the point about affinity and Marvin's earlier point about he didn't go beyond CS6, they said when you read the article, their whole strategy, they did this, I think, starting in 2012 when they switched over to the subscription model. It wasn't only so they could make more money, which obviously it did make them more money, but because they can release the updates to it like every day if they want to, or every week at least, the incremental updates to the programs. That's why I said when you said 2 years for the update, I'm like, wow, that's ages in the software world. I just wonder if they'll be able to stay competitive. I mean, I applaud them. That's good. It's just like I like the little guy, like Sketch, like I mentioned earlier, but Adobe is there. They just acquired Figma. I'm sure everybody knows that. Basically to take them out of the picture of the competition because they were competing with XD and eating Adobe's lunch in that space.
I put the
That's
Fast Company
interesting.
link in the chat so people can look at that. I probably post them maybe to the blog, but let me go ahead with just some more introductions. So Mark, can you introduce yourself? Hopefully your microphone works. Oh, he just left.
Probably didn't mean to.
Maybe he clicked disconnect instead of his microphone.
Mark, come back.
All right, so Gil, why don't you introduce yourself?
I haven't been to one of these meetings in years. I'm a commercial screen printer, and I primarily work in Illustrator a lot, drawing for my own stuff, my own line of products. But I do, I'm probably going to have to stay with Adobe because I am just starting to work with Cleveland Clinic more, which is a good thing for my company. But I am way behind. Spike can tell you I'm like obnoxiously behind because I kind of got stuck in my little rut of what I do in screen printing, and I'm really good at drawing in Illustrator, but not the newer versions. I'm still using my old Mac mostly, and so the idea that we were getting away from the Postscript, I didn't even know. Just been totally in my little bubble, especially since COVID happened. So
Okay, so Mary, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry about all that noise. My name is Mary Averill. I am currently president of CDPUG and will be stepping down as at the end of the month. Been a fun couple of years, getting to know everybody and going through all the munitions of a very new situation called the pandemic. And we managed and we got through it and we stuck together, and it's been a pleasure, and it's also been very rewarding. I have my own company. I'm out of Strongsville. I was in Chagrin for 30 years, and I moved to Strongsville in 2016. My business does a myriad of things. Usually I end up finding out what the client needs, and then I put the people around the table that need to be there to satisfy the needs of the client. I do a lot of the work, but I don't do it all because I'm not master of many. I am master of a few, but I'm smart enough to know when I'm not good at something to get somebody else to do it. That's what does well at it. I think this is a fabulous idea. I applaud you, Spike, for doing this square table discussion. I think it's needed. There's lots of people that have information that, can certainly impart to people that are like them. So there's no misunderstanding the language. I have two questions for the Affinity, so that probably goes to you, Henry, if you're still there. The first one is long document abilities, i.e. TOCs, indexes, books, and all that. Does the new version 2 Affinity do this for in Publisher?
We're able to do that in the previous version too.
I didn't see it. Because I
Yeah,
got the previous version, but I don't have the new one.
Yeah, it's buried in there. It's not as obvious, but the new version makes it a little bit obvious. It's a little bit more readily available in the front when you log in.
Wow.
You can search around the forms, but it'll do long forms. It's had that ability to do it for quite a while now.
Okay, and the second thing is, I hope within this discussion, I hope for people who are thinking about jumping to Affinity, what would be the equivalency of Acrobat? That's an important little guy.
I can tell you what I like. I don't know what Henry likes, but PDF pens is what I like. There's a PDF pen and a PDF pen Pro. And those are like nice. I mean, there's lots of PDF programs out there. They got purchased by some PC companies. So like they were like a little Mac company before. So there's PC products. So those are good. And they come with set app. So if you have, there's something called set app, which is like a subscription. I think you pay like $10 a month and you get like 100 programs or 150 programs that you can download and use. It's like it's like one size fits all. It's included in there. It's actually a Ukrainian company, so you're supporting the Ukrainians when you do that. So go ahead, Henry. I didn't mean to cut you off there with that question.
Have you heard of Foxit?
Yes, I use it all the time on the Windows side because it has such low overhead. I recommend that probably over Adobe Acrobat
Really?
or Adobe Reader because of the fact that and there's nothing wrong with a Acrobat reader. It's just that they have loaded so much stuff in the background, and then if you want extra functionality, you can just turn it on or purchase it outright, and then you don't have to re-download the application again. But it loads all that stuff in the background, so it just chews up a lot of memory. And I tend to work on machines that don't have a lot of processing power to begin with, low-end machines. So I find that Foxit Reader is just it's a great, well-rounded out, PDF reader for the Windows side of the house, and it runs great. It's very smooth, it's very straightforward, not a lot of crazy stuff going on in the background. And they update it regularly for security patches.
Well, Acrobat does a lot more than read, though. I mean, there's a lot of editing capabilities and some programming capabilities that it has, and that's what I'm looking for.
If you want the collaboration stuff, you need the Pro version of PDF Pen.
Right.
Yeah, and if you want just PDF stuff, like I always use Preview. I think it works. It's a lot faster and it's a lot better than using Adobe Reader.
I'm not looking for Adobe Reader. I'm looking for Acrobat.
Yeah, try
Yeah.
PDF Pen, and there's a trial version of it too, Mary, so you can try it out. Though there actually is a trial for SetApp too, and that's sometimes it's like I use that for some clients that need to try software out because it's longer trial period than you might get if you just went right to the app's website.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I don't know about any other do you have any opinion about collaboration, Henry? Do you even do that? Were you doing that at Copy King?
Yeah, we were doing collaborations, but there are a lot of other apps. You can use Microsoft Teams. Google has collaboration, whiteboards that you can log in to, and you can collaborate that way for certain projects. As I'm getting into Microsoft Teams on this end, that can actually do all that. And believe it or not, Zoom has the ability to do collaboration stuff too.
But that's not really for creating documents like you
No.
can with Acrobat.
It's different. You can create whiteboards. We find that, if you use OneNote, which is, cross-platform, you can also create documents that, you can collaborate on in real time. But as far as what you're looking for, yeah, I don't have an opinion on that or any answers for you.
I've used a lot the Creative Cloud collaboration capabilities for the shared libraries, if you're familiar with those, and meaning the shared assets and for client reviews and comments. And that part is going to be hard to replace because it's so integrated. It's a whole ecosystem. that they all, not all of them, but they're working on it. Most of them can do, even XD being the latest, can do that, as well as they have some web versions too. I don't know if you guys have checked those out in beta of Photoshop and Illustrator, for instance, that are web versions, kind of stripped down from the desktop. It's kind of interesting. They're experimenting with, I guess, to address maybe something like affinity. They're very, canny. That's why they came out with Adobe Express to counteract Canva, for instance. That's their answer to Canva.
Yeah, and they're advertising it like crazy. I don't watch
Oh,
that much
yeah.
TV, and I've been seeing tons of commercials for it.
Because I can't, looking for a job, I can't tell you how many just job descriptions I've seen that ask to say, must know Photoshop and Canva. And I'm like, wait a minute. People in business office settings that don't know the Adobe apps love Canva because it's easy to use and they can learn it real quick.
I can speak from my experience for the last year and a half that we were getting inundated for a lot of people who were turning in jobs that were done in Canva, but they were not created right for printing. In other words, you basically put a designer in front of a set of tools doesn't make them the designer. A lot of them create the right bleeds. They don't set up their folds correctly. So you're having to fix a lot of stuff on the back end. But if you teach them,
it's intended for social media and digital stuff like that. It's not really intended for print jobs, like you're saying. And that people don't know about pre-flighting. They don't know what CMYK is even.
Yeah.
They have no idea about, fonts, or, they'll look at you like you're crazy if you said anything, those kind of customers using Canva.
It's like the modern day version of Publisher, for lack of a better term.
Correct.
Yeah, I think of it like if all you have is a hammer, every problem is a nail. No, that's how I think of that. So let's see. Let me do some more introductions. I'd like to introduce my friend Matt Code. So and I would tell you a joke, Matt, if it's okay, because Matt said that he wanted our square table to have rounded corners. So I guess maybe we should make it out of aluminum or something like that. I would want.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself, Matt?
Hi, everybody, Matt Code. I am a creative director for Charles Schwab for the last almost 20 years now, Spike.
Time flies.
I know, it's unbelievable, right? And I met Spike back in my Desberg and Associates days. We've been good friends for a long time. So basically I work on all kinds of custom communications and branded communications for our clients at Schwab. If you're not familiar with them, they are an investment firm, one of the biggest investment firms in the country. And I report into an agency in Austin, Texas. They all moved out of San Francisco, and we have a studio in Richfield that we've been in there for the past 20 years or so before me. And little by little, they've kind of gotten rid of the crappy art directors and the problem kids. And I've in the last of the two that are there in Richfield. So my home office is basically my corporate office now, because there's no sense of me driving from Chardon to Richfield, which is about 50 miles one way. So it's been a great job. I kind of miss the agency days, but I'm on the back end. I'm on the back nine of my career, so I'm not really looking to do anything. I was going to ask Pantone questions on that. Spike actually informed me on that, because we're kind of siloed in corporate. We don't really work too much in the super ultra creative kind of agency modes, because when we basically get a client on board at Schwab, if we're following their brand, I become like the art director for their brand at Schwab. So, and anything done in the Schwab brand, obviously my palette is very limited. We are blue, and that's about it. So I didn't really, I haven't experienced any troubles or any needs for a workaround, but is there any updates, inside information? Anybody got any tips and tricks, or, hey, Matt, here's something to think about? Because I do freelance on the side. So
Is the Pantone
an issue yet.
Is the Pantone stuff the reason that you came tonight, Matt? Is that like the hot button for you?
No, you've been bugging me for years to come to one of these meetings, so I figured I would get my ass in here, so.
Oh, okay.
No, I just haven't been to one of these meetings. I thought, oh, cool, roundtable with creative people. Because I'm remote now, I don't really get to do that much, FaceTime with other people. So this was an excuse to kind of have a cocktail and see creatives.
You did make, I have to add this joke. It's kind of not really appropriate to Pantone, but back in the old days, I used to work with Ernst & Winnie a lot, and then, I guess it maybe is similar to your, the restrictions you have at Charles Schwab, but you were allowed to use any typeface you wanted at Ernst & Winnie as long as it was times, or times.
Yeah. We actually made a custom font for the corporation. We do use a lot of outside agencies too, but yeah, but I haven't really run into any problems. I haven't had any issues, and nobody in the creative department, or actually our agency is called C2, and we haven't really run into any, nobody's ever brought it up really. I think that people I work with too are kind of siloed. I think of all the creatives in the agency, because I do a lot of custom stuff with outside branding, I'm the only one that maybe would experience it. So I don't know if there's going to be any kind of workaround, plugin. Can you use the old Pantone color books,
Henry,
old libraries or whatever?
I'm kind of counting on Henry to be like, the Jesse Owens, for all the stuff that we're discussing today. So Henry, can you talk about can you discuss the Pantones?
As long as you have an older version of Adobe or anyone, if you export the ACB library out of those, you can import them back into the new version and you have access to your library.
Okay, yeah, I've done that. Yep.
If you look at the chat, I just typed in a link for Retone. It was a gentleman in Britain who decided to have one up the rest of the knuckleheads and create his own version of Pantone colors that you can download for free. It's called Retone, and you can actually install those into your own library and use them.
Okay.
Swap them out. There's a description that tells you how to, replace them and then put them in your library.
Yeah. Very rarely do we have to adhere to something that's a spot color. I mean, most of the stuff we pump out is digital anyway. So
the other way to spend the money, buy a Pantone Color Bridge swatch book, an actual one for about $200. It'll give you an encoded version. And
there they are. Yeah.
Because you're going to pay that in about 2 years with Pantone for their Color Connect.
Okay.
So what you do is it'll give you the formulas, the CMYK and RGB formulas for those, and you can enter those and to the lab, and it'll just convert them to a spot color. All the printer needs to know is what color you want it, because for us, when we're looking at a Pantone, no matter what as long as you spec it as spot color, even though you have it marked as RGB or CMYK, we're still going to refer to the actual Pantone swatch book for the actual print color on the press. So that's what we'll print with.
Gotcha. That's good information. I would have to do some deep dive, because in my workflow, or in the agency workflow, the art director at my stage, if you will, does all the concepting, and then we have like a whole studio group that actually pumps the files out for print.
Right.
I very rarely handle printers in Cleveland anymore. So
they're doing the color, not you, Matt.
Yeah. I mean, I will I'll lay everything out in a spec form for them, what I want. If it goes to print, I would have to say 70% of our stuff is all digital anyways. Do a lot of email campaigns. But if something does go to clients that don't have they aren't tech savvy, say they're, white collar workers, or, we have AM General, the company that makes the Hummer truck. So 80% of those people barely have emails because they're floor workers. They're, old school. So, but the studio basically handles it. I would just outline what I need. So.
How's this going to affect you, Gil, with doing the silk screen stuff? Because that spot colors that I'm not a color expert, so maybe this is a dumb question. I'll embarrass myself, but how's it affect you for that?
Well, to be honest, this is one of the reasons I came to the meeting, because like I said, I've been in my little silo, and if we want to color ink, we mix it to a Pantone color that somebody gives us. So I don't know how this is going to affect us long term. For when we're printing shirts, I do subcontract some stuff out, so it may become an issue in time. But it depends on what comes to me. I do a lot of work for Broadway Cares, so their designers will work in Illustrator and use a specific Pantone number for me, but that's even rare. Normally it's like they have red, but they will, I can mix any Pantone color from scratch. So I don't know what the screen printing ink makers are going to do. I suppose they'll still stick with Pantone. I don't think it will affect our industry much, except for designing it.
How do you think, what's your opinion about that, Henry, for silk screening?
Same problem we have in offset litho printing press. It doesn't matter. We have a swatch book and it has a set formula on it. So that's not, it doesn't matter. You can make your digital file blue with a, with a default cyan for a spot color, but as long as you spec it and we know what it is, that's what we're going to mix the color and it'll print correctly.
I
It
see.
doesn't matter to us. It only matters to you during the proofing process and also during the hard copy proofing, like soft proofs on the screen. And when you're physically printing a digital copy out just to, look at it for review purposes. But for the final printing process, just like with Gil, we have a Pantone swatch book that has a formula in it that's what we're going by. And there's actually physical swatches in that swatch book that tells you what it should look like.
Yeah.
I mean, is Adobe and Pantone going to kiss and make up, or has it been so long now, like it's been long enough since this started that it's just going to stay the way it is?
What's the origin of the disagreement? I'm not familiar with what's happened between Adobe and Pantone. What's going on, Henry? Or
I think it mostly has to do with the CEO at Adobe telling Pantone that you can take your licensing request for increase in terms of licensing fee and shove it up your where, and then he didn't take it lightly, so he fought back and said, screw you all at Adobe, and let's see how you survive without the Pantone, libraries in your product, thinking that, they were never going to just thinking they were going to back down because it's such an integral part of their product,
Yeah.
So far, there's been no news. It's happened. They started in January. They pulled it in March, and then by August, they really pulled it, and that's it. So that's where we're at. So we might see a change if enough designers finally say, we're tired of this pitching contest, and they start leaving in droves, or they write Pantone and tell them to go shove it up their butt.
So let me understand. So if you open up an app right now, an Adobe app, the Pantone libraries are not in there to choose from. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're not going to show up. They're just, well, you're going to get basic library they'll show up, but for the more advanced colors and everything else, they'll just show up and nothing. It'll say it's unavailable.
Huh. So if you had an existing spot color for your logo, like
Yeah,
Matt was talking about, it wouldn't be there.
right. You wouldn't get the Pantone spot colors. You can get any other library of spot colors in there, like all the other ones, the CIE, Japanese, Nippon ones. So all the other color libraries will be there. You can pick those as spot colors. But the important part is that you just have to be smart about communicating that to your, your service provider. As long as they're dealing with spot colors, that's what they're going to be working off of. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. It's only going to affect the people who are in the digital print world, like at my previous print shop. So those with the digital presses, there is a formulation, and those Pantone numbers do have a sub-series of numbers that can calibrate to certain, digital printers like Canon, Konica Minolta, everything else. So all those have a number model in terms of how they reproduce those colors on their digital presses. That's where you're going to start seeing problems come next year and the following year if you don't get resolved anytime soon.
Yeah.
So it doesn't affect commercial offset printers? You just tell them the formulation? And
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hit it right on the mark, right? I mean, a Pantone 032 is the same on silk screen as it is for offset press. The formulation, as long as you have that formulation book, it'll tell you exactly what percentage to mix up. It's just a matter of whether you mix 2 ounces of it or you mix, 16 ounces of that color. But it should be the same across the board.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
if this is like, to me, I find it kind of amusing. I don't know if this is an accurate interpretation, but like everybody didn't like, all the graphic artists didn't like it when Adobe went from perpetual license to a subscription. And now when they get a subscription from Pantone, they don't like it.
Yeah, look who's calling the kettle black, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
I
I
just
have a,
think
I have a
that's-
quick, I have a quick question if I can interject. So Henry, if I read the one Reddit thing here correctly and what you said, you could actually just copy the swatches from the folder in an older version and then just replace them in the newer version and you have them? Like it's that easy?
There's a whole bunch of, you can Google it. That's just one solution. I just put one in there just to show you
Right.
that that's the one workaround that somebody figured out. Now, there's at least 3 or 4 other workarounds. You can just Google it and see what works for your workflow, but they all achieve the same result.
Henry, does that work with 2023 version of InDesign for the 2023 versions?
Yeah, I don't have it, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, so I guess the thing is, Brian, whenever, if you get something that works, you probably don't want to be really careful about trying to upgrade, like when 2023.1 comes out in a few months, you might want to, leave both versions on there.
Right.
And to be fair, Adobe has never really, from my industry standpoint, for commercial screen printing on garments, they've never really been in tune with that industry. I've done work for Russell Preston Brown, who's the senior creative director. When he used to do some workshops, he did some in Kent, and I met him through my contacts at Kent State. And I did a simulated 4-color process job for him 25 years ago. And he was like, he wanted 4-color process. I said, no, you can't do that on a dark shirt. And I was using a plugin, and he asked me why I didn't do it with Photoshop. And I said, well, it's just not possible. And there are some really convoluted ways to get to it in Photoshop now, but I'm like, how do you not, with all the stuff that Adobe's products do, for such a big part of the industry, they pretty much ignore us, I think. I use the products all the time, but they seem to be behind the curve in screen printing all the time. It's kind of an afterthought for them.
Brian, why don't you introduce yourself? I want to try to get to everybody, but since you were just sort of in the conversation, can you go ahead and do that for everybody?
Sure, I'll try to do a quick intro. I'm Brian Bukowski. My company is Bomb Image. I do branding and marketing for small companies. Been a part of CDPUG for probably 5 years or so now. I'm a former president and try to help out with the board as much as I can. I have 2 young girls at home, or younger still at home, that I have to deal with. But yeah, I've found some of these some of the things that I've learned and some of the relationships that I've gotten through CDPUG to be very, very trying to think of the right word, very fruitful. It's been an awesome organization, and it's helped me to grow as a designer. It's helped me grow in my business as well, and as a business person. And yeah, it's been a great group, and I hope to see it continue. I know we've had our struggles over the past couple of years, but hopefully that's a quick enough intro. I help from a variety of capacities with my company. I guess I'll get into that very quickly. I've been a marketing manager or marketing team of 1 or 2 for small companies for my entire career. And I'm doing that on my own as Bomb Image now for the last about 6 years. But yeah, help in a variety of capacities for people to figure out what their message is, what it sounds like, what it looks like, and how to get that into the proper channels.
So, Brian, what was your main interest for like being here? I mean, you come to meetings regularly anyways, but what was the hot button on the agenda list of things to talk about for you?
I think the Pantone was one of them. I think that was probably the biggest one for me. And like I had done a little bit of research and sent some stuff around to you guys as well, just to hear what people think about it. And I guess if I have one take on it, it's kind of funny. The printers will always be able to do what they need to do. There's only one of them, but how many people call themselves designers and are using this software? And when you start looking at how many people and how many subscriptions and where the money's going to come from, it's absolutely ridiculous that's kind of how but They're trying to make their money grab, and that they're not going to get it from the printers themselves. They'll get it from the people that utilize the software to get the stuff to the printer. So it's kind of wild how they're trying and attempting to do that. I think Pantone themselves are just I think they're gonna ruin themselves, in my opinion. People just aren't going to use it.
Yeah, from a business perspective, Adobe, far outweighs Pantone and whatever Pantone does or doesn't do.
Yeah, and
in the landscape. And
right. And even how, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. And things are just, as in a long time Adobe user and observer, I can tell you they're going away from print toward digital. And they have been for a long time, and it's just not as big a chunk of their revenue any longer.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. When I joined the conversation, I was a few minutes late. I heard Matthew talking and saying how he does so much stuff digitally. That's all people are going to care about. Things have been getting so much easier and better. Again, at least from my perspective, to print even from an RGB file or whatever the heck you have to do. Who cares? Just get it done, get it close. I mean, I think that's kind of the thing now. And it's kind of wild that this fight is happening the way it is. It's kind of crazy to me.
Here's a question for Henry. What do you see when you do printing, or you talk to your colleagues in printing? What percentage you think is critical on this whole Pantone thing? Or everyone back in the day, it was always like, oh my gosh, you can only do colors if you're printing color because it's going to be expensive. Well, now nobody cares. It's all CMYK. How many jobs, or what really drives, somebody to say, oh, this is a problem, because like I said, I don't remember in 20 years at Schwab, I have maybe done 5% where it was critical. I needed to nail a Pantone color.
That's about right.
Yeah. So the whole point might just be moot. Like Pantone's got their back against the wall, and Adobe's like, nobody cares anymore about you. I hate to say that, but it could be.
No.
CMYK, baby, just make your own color. Who cares?
Yeah, and those big companies like yours, Matt, Charles Schwab of the world, those big huge companies that have to have the exact color, they can afford to pay the Pantone, fee.
The
But
biggest
little
stickler I
guys
have that's
aren't going to care.
a biggest stickler I have that is a color crazy client is the Bank Santander, and they have a specific custom private Pantone color they use, but they just give you the CMYK. They don't really, like, why don't you just give it the CMYK? Why do you have to make your own? I think it was because they make a lot of money.
Is there a segment of the market where this matters? Like if you're doing packaging or something like that?
No, it doesn't, because they usually the stuff that we ship out comes in a Charles Schwab package. Very rarely. We have a handful of clients I work with. Universal is one of them because it's got to look like Universal. But if it comes from, like, say it's CDPUG, we have, you have your retirement through us. It'll come in a package that says Charles Schwab, but it might be custom to CDPUG when you open the package. So
if I can interject too, Henry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you start laying these colors down, again, hopefully you're getting the right ones, whether they're coded, uncoded, whatever. But man, you start laying these things down, they're going to look a little different. Even if you have a Pantone color, they're going to look a little different on whatever kind of paper or whatever kind of I guess materials you're putting down, substrate, whatever you're putting it on. So it's kind of tough.
That's always been the case. That's nothing new. But I think that especially the digital printing technology has improved so much since back in the day when Pantone and the fonts were such an issue. Remember, it used to be a big issue cross-platform between fonts, Windows and Mac, and that's not so much anymore with the whole Adobe font thing. Google fonts, and it's just become much more digitized, if you will.
Here's how old I am. I have a book from Pantone that has a transparency printing of all the Pantone colors, and you can hold it over different substrates to see what it's going to look like over that substrate. So if it's like a creamy, a dull white, a bright white, a gloss, or whatever, a newspaper, when you pop that little screen over there on top of it, you can see what that color turns into. So it's really impressive. I used to work for IBM, and he gave me this book years ago. I mean, this is like 20, 30 some odd years ago, this book. It's unbelievable. Spike, remind me the next time you come over. I think I still have it.
I've never seen that.
It's unbelievable. It was cutting edge back in the day. When we were young, 15 years ago.
So let me move the conversation a little bit to fonts. So I guess Judy, why don't you introduce yourself and we could maybe talk about type 1 fonts now?
I'm Judy Beveridge. I am membership director of CDPUG. I have been with the group since the early 90s, so I'm probably the oldest member that has not been a president. Spike hasn't arrested me into that because I'm membership director. I can be membership and president at the same time.
That could be changed, Judy.
No. But no, my thing is like, I love to collect fonts. I have a zillion fonts and I've been procrastinating. I've been really bad. And I can make, like, I got a project I'm working on. I work on magazines. I'm working on one for Medina right now. And it's like, I have to convert some display fonts over and I'm going, oh crap, what to do now? And I'm like, there's no way I can afford to go back to these font places and buy all these fonts. So I did manage to find, you see in the chat there, I went to Font Lab and for $97, there is a conversion. And it seems pretty easy. And I've used it, I don't want to do a demo because I'm like, I've only had it for like a week, but it's working so far, it looks like.
We talked about that a little bit before you joined us, Judy. Like Joyce uses, I guess Joyce tried it, but then she abandoned it. Mary uses it. So I guess like we can talk about, type 1 fonts are going to be going away January 1st.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I assume I have people that are having anxiety attacks about it.
That was me.
And like, I tell them like, well, you need to use, either purchase open type fonts or use your true type fonts or use Google fonts or use the Adobe type on call fonts or the ones that come with your subscription. But they get confused trying to like stop using the type 1 fonts. So I know, but you could talk to Mary. Mary's used that utility. So Mary, you want to share something with font? What's the name of the product? Type 4.
Trans Type 4. It's made by Font Lab. And I put it in the chat. It's like $97.
I've had it for, I don't even know how many years. Had it a long time.
Are you
Why'd you
using
buy
it?
it
Have you tried using those converted fonts in Creative Cloud now, Mary?
I haven't much, to be honest. I'm not really procrastinating per se. I'm just getting this job done, and once it's done, then I'll have like the Christmas time. I'll have some quiet time during Christmas season, closer to Christmas anyway. And anyway, so far I haven't seen a problem. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues was concerned about it, and I switched to Font 4, and I said, here, try these and see if it works. Haven't heard a peep out of her. It seems to be seamless, but to Ms. Stratton's comment earlier, she couldn't remember the one that she had experienced, but what I said then was earlier in this meeting was that there may be licensing issues, font licensing issues. And my guess is that if fonts are embedded into PDFs and that's what you submit, like, for example, to a printer, then you shouldn't have a problem unless the font police are really looking for you. But since pretty much everything I do, either it's outlined in Illustrator or embedded in PDFs. So I don't see a problem myself yet, but that's where I'm at. And Trans Type 4 works fine. It could convert in just about anything from Postscript level 1. So, and I've got a lot of fonts to go through. I'd like to know how many you have, Judy.
Oh, too many.
I know, me too. So
just to get this job done, what do you do when you work for a publisher and they're like, okay, you got to use this font for the body type, this type for the headline font. Yeah. And you're like, okay, I gotta convert all these fonts.
It's a good time to weed out the riffraff, which is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, the person with the most fonts wins.
Yeah. Oh.
So Joyce, what scared you away? What did you read that scared you? Because I guess like if you were doing something where you might get like, you wouldn't want to do it for Disney or I guess Charles Schwab or something like that, where you're concerned about the legality of the font, but
you buy the other type at that point.
Yeah, what scared you exactly?
Well, I think it was something you said to me.
Oh no.
But it's been a while and I don't remember what it was. So I claim oldest and farthest away. I'm 75 and I'm in Florida. But I've recently purchased a couple of fonts for publications where the font must stay the same. And I found a good price for Clearface, which is the text font that's used for this publication. And it was $12 per regular italic, etc.
Right.
And I made a decision after sending a letter out to my clients, most of whom are printers. I do backup printing, or I'm the sole designer for several printers. And I also do a couple of publications where I need to use the version of InDesign where the type can go right to left because Hebrew is inserted. Although I can't read it, I can make it go the right direction.
Wow.
And I decided that for projects where it doesn't really matter, like forms and just generic things, I can substitute a font if necessary. Most of those people will never know the difference. I'm sorry. My niece just came in the door and the dogs are going crazy. And I decided that I was going to deal with this per project. If it's something where it's a company that has been using a certain font for a while, then me and my client and or their client will purchase it. I purchased Helvetica, which is in my world the most often used font, and that wasn't too bad. I was trying to purchase I got Futura. Frutiger, no, I'm sorry. I get the two F's mixed up. Futura for the whole package is $1,500, which is outrageous. And I
Yeah.
understand why
Yeah.
nobody would want to do that.
I was looking at
Um,
Frutiger and I'm going, $42 for each one. I'm like, no.
No, that's not gonna happen. So
Well,
unless
I
there's
do
a-
enough on
unless there's an
Frutiger that
embedded
it was
font
worth
issue.
it.
So I guess if it's a branding thing, you kind of have to, you probably want to purchase it and be legal, especially if it's someplace where they might see it on the web. But I imagine small businesses, you can probably get it like, pizza places around the corner, you can probably get away with converting them. I would
Right.
think.
I've had clients who can't even tell the difference between Times and Helvetica, so you can pretty much you can find a pretty good substitute and they really won't care that much. So I'll do it as they come in. I figured I'll let them all know that it's happening and kind of what the deal is, and we'll just go from there.
When you
Does
send out your
does
work, do you
anybody
send it
else
out-
besides Mary and Judy use those? And who did I just interrupt so I can make sure you get to talk? I
Well,
couldn't tell.
I was just gonna say, if you send out your work in PDF, it may not be a problem from a licensing issue, but if you don't want to take a chance, then there's that. But so far it works for me.
The thing that I've noticed is like when I started doing this project, actually it was with Falls, though it didn't really, Falls Communications didn't really go anywhere, but a lot of the typefaces now you have to purchase them for special fonts just for the web, and then you have to pay for impressions as well. So like it's not for the, I guess you can, to me, that's kind of strange because you have to buy a font, but you don't know how much it's going to cost you when you consider how many people look at the page. And I wouldn't be, the other thing I discovered is Monotype owns like a ton of foundries, like you wouldn't even know, like I think My Fonts is owned by Monotype and there's other places like that. So they actually have a subscription, all you can eat for typefaces at Monotype. But you have to have, I think, at least 5 seats or 10 seats. So it's more for an enterprise, not for an individual graphic designer. But I think at some point they'll probably get to that point too, where you're going to be paying for your fonts to Monotype on a monthly subscription, or at least that's going to be an option for you.
Are we still liking Suitcase Fusion, Spike?
I like it still. I mean, it's you can collaborate and share fonts within it now. So if you're on a team, you can actually have a library that's shared in the sidebar, just like you might share a photo library or something like that. You do have some really nice smart searches that help you identify your fonts, where you can make searches of all the scripts or the slabs or the sans serifs and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I use it now to identify all the type 1 fonts that people have in their library, so they can at least know what they have to watch out for. So
We switched over to a font agent at Schwab a few years back.
how do you like it compared to Suitcase? Or does it matter? No one, everybody,
I'm used to
nobody likes their
Suitcase.
font managers. They always bitch about them, even though
Yeah, I think if anybody could come up with a really good, sexy interface and a font management system, I'd pretty much love them.
Well,
It just, you know, it's, I don't know. I'm used to Fusion at home. Font agent's okay. I think it's a little janky. The way you import, it's not very intuitive. I'm used to it, but I don't do a lot of crazy.
Suitcase is now called, I think they call it Connect, Suitcase Connect, and it's a subscription.
Yeah.
And it's, you can have an admin and share font libraries and things like that. So it works really well with small work groups.
All right.
All right, let's do some more introductions. So let's, Ann McNay, can you introduce yourself to everyone?
My name is Ann McNay. I'm a freelance graphic designer for about the past 20 years. I previously was the creative director for Revco and for Grey Drug. Right now, I still am involved in retail, but the wholesale end. And I came to the meeting because I was worried about the Pantone situation, as I do have colors that have to be matched for some of our vendors. And that's just about it. Did you get that?
Yeah, I did. I'm just trying to think of what to ask you about, or how to, did we answer your questions with Pantone? Was that was like the coming here helpful to you?
I was just curious if anybody had downloaded the Pantone Connect.
Oh, and actually paid the fee for it?
Yeah, the one you have to pay
Subscription?
for. I didn't do it, but I was curious. If
Has anybody here done that?
I mean,
it has bad
All right,
reviews.
I guess we can't help you with that, Ann, other than like, I'm sure it probably, I haven't had to do it for anyone yet, but I'm sure we could, it's probably not that hard and we could probably figure it out.
Yeah, it just has bad reviews. That's what I was curious if anybody had tried it.
Oh, yeah, though I guess like the bad reviews could be just because people are pissed they have to pay for it.
yeah, they're all getting
Yeah,
saucy.
I mean, like it might be that it's shitty, it doesn't work very well, and like it's hard to figure out. I mean, that could be bad, that could be the case as well, but it could just be also that they're, resentful that they have to pay for it.
Yes.
Is there a free
Or
trial?
both, or both. What'd you say, Matt?
Is there a free trial? Maybe a 30-day free trial? I'm looking it up.
I think it was 7 days.
7 days. Who can do anything in 7 days?
Nobody.
That sounds like a Chuck Berry song now that I think about it. 7 days and 7 nights.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on with some other introductions. I guess, Christy, can you introduce yourself? Hopefully you're still like, I can't see you, so hopefully you're behind your screen.
Yes, I'm here. I've been using Adobe Suite since like 1990, starting out with like Illustrator 2 and Tri-C days. I've been at the same industrial job doing their graphics for 27 years, started as a co-op from Tri-C. And the company over the last 10 years has changed names so many times. I've had to rebrand so many times, but I've known Spike for many years because he used to be our Mac guy at Avtron until we got bought out 10 years ago and they kicked my Mac out and put me on a Dell. So a little salty about that. But
Probably traumatic.
I'm sorry.
It was probably very traumatic. I mean,
It
been
was.
forced to use Dell
I actually printed a picture of the Apple logo and taped it on the side of my tower for many years. But yeah, so I came once in a while to your meetings in person before COVID and virtually since COVID. And yeah, I came to see about the Pantones and the Postscript fonts and any new tidbits anyone had about Adobe Creative Suite. That's my main power horse. I do graphic layout, videos, you name it. I do it all for the company. So yeah,
Are you using Creative Cloud, Christy, or Creative Suite?
Creative Cloud, sorry.
Okay, I wanted to make sure, because there are people, though I have to tell you, I don't really run across too many Creative Suite people anymore, but there were a few still hanging on there, but it's harder and harder now. So Mary, you have both, don't you, Mary?
Yeah, I was running both for a minute there, but I ran into a situation that I needed a particular ability that the older suite could not do, and it was a big job. So I just caved. I hung on for about 10 years and then I caved. So I'm a subscription member now, but the more we talk about Affinity and its abilities, I could easily make the jump.
So Christy, are you doing any freelance or moonlighting now, or are you still doing your manufacturing job?
I'm still doing the manufacturing job. We just actually got sold again 3 months ago. So rebranding again.
Go
So-
get your Mac.
That's good. You have lots.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
you have
wish.
lots of experience at least. That happens to me. My bank keeps getting bought. So like if anybody has any work with Huntington, they're going to be purchased by someone now, because that's where I'm at.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's been in the last 10 years, I've rebranded 8 times. So, and I'm getting good at this rebranding thing.
I'm sure
Job
they're behind the
security.
company just because
That's
they
a
all want
lot.
you.
Oh, maybe. Well, I did get named in the carve out as a good asset. So I had to go with the carve out of the company that was sold. So that I had to go with.
So that means you were like a key employee and they wanted you to come to get in the transition. Is that what that means?
Yep. I guess that's
for
good.
you. Yeah, good for you.
That's all I got.
So did we helped you out with the things that you came here for?
Yes, yeah, I've been taking some notes and appreciate all the information because I'm kind of on my own. I got to research and keep up to date on everything. There's no one there to tell me at the job, so got to stay on top of it yourself.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
great. All right, so Macbeth, if you're behind your screen paying attention, can you do the same thing and introduce yourself? Or else we're gonna call. Maybe I should have texted her or chatted with her first so I don't embarrass her. How about you, Mark? Why don't you go and we'll come back to Macbeth. Maybe
Mark, you're muted.
Maybe Mark has his speaker off.
Yeah, he's muted.
Can you hear us, Mark?
Mark.
Calling on you. So maybe why don't we go with you, Vessel? Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Vesel Kozuva. I am a in-house graphic designer. We rarely use anything for print. However, once in a while it is required. It's like recently I'm kind of faced more with people who want to use templates and all kind of Canva things, mainly for marketing. So I have to kind of, excuse me?
Like salespeople.
Yeah. So I think graphic designers are faced to, and probably other kind of creative are faced to a lot of challenges nowadays because software is very accessible. Everyone can use it. So we have to kind of learn quite a lot of things. So any kind of information from anywhere is always welcome.
And how much are you doing much print now, or are you doing mostly web stuff in your job?
I do both, including packaging as well. So yeah, I mean, people who do not understand this area are not in much luck, whatever they cannot communicate. There are, however, tools in companies that try to create on demand any design. So pretty much it's like a list of things that you select, and they just give you solutions, but it's not a person who can design stuff. And it's kind of, I'm having a hard time explaining to them that actually you have to think about any detail on whatever media it is. So not to mention understanding, like whether it's a resolution, whether it's fonts, whether it's any kind of specifications for prints. And of course they want it all. So
Okay, well, thank you. Did we cover the topics that you wanted to have covered in the things that we discussed?
yes and no. I mean, that there are so many things that in general, I mean, that I'm not here for a particular topic. I just wanted to hear what the other people are faced with. So yeah, I'm looking forward to other meetings as well.
Okay. All right, I guess maybe I'll have Sarah introduce herself, and then Linda. I want to make sure, I don't want to leave anyone out, and we'll get to round two. So can you go ahead, Sarah?
All right. Hi, my name is Sarah Coggins. I've been coming to CDPUG for about 3+ years now. And I come in and I do recordings of the meetings and edit them and put them up onto the YouTube channel for people to view later. I have my side job is my company Canopy Productions, which is with video editing and post-production work. And I primarily come to these meetings to absorb new knowledge and kind of keep up to date with things.
So this makes me think of the May show. So, every May we do our showcase where it's people show their portfolios and do a 5-minute presentation telling their story. And so I guess I should ask for like a show of hands of who has done a showcase for CDPUG before. So like if you want to see biographies of some of the members or see the kind of work that they do, that's on the YouTube page as well. And Sarah does all the editing for that. So we're very lucky that Sarah is willing to, we're very grateful for her contributions doing
Thank
those
you,
things
Sarah.
for us.
You're
Yes.
welcome.
I appreciate your time. Okay, so let's, how about you, Linda? Can you tell us about yourself?
Yes, I'm Linda Caruth. I've been coming to CDPUG meetings since about 1995, off and on. Can you hear me? Everybody here?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure. New computer. I'm an illustrator. I started with airbrush back in the late 80s and moved to the Mac in about 94. I do more illustration. I don't do as much graphic design anymore. That never was my main thing. For fonts, I purchase from independent designers, and then there's less issues with, licensing and everything. So I don't have as much of those kind of problems. I don't do as much print work anymore. I still have a Creative Suite on one of my Macs. And I had CC when I was teaching at Tri-C, but I dumped it in 2017 when I quit teaching. I don't know, it just seemed kind of buggy, and I just did better with Suite. So got to a point where I couldn't upgrade anymore. So I just bought a Mac Studio in August.
You did?
And yeah.
Oh my God.
And I just put CC on it last Friday.
Tell me how it is. I want to know, because I'm
I
debating
haven't
whether
had
or not. Yeah, that and a laptop.
I haven't had a chance to test the Adobe software on it that much. I still do a lot of work on the old computer, and I'm slowly moving things over and deciding what to move over. That's a big part of it. So, and I did get Affinity too, because I want to try that too. I may make the jump at some point. So I'm trying to be smart about it and be able to back save, and so that I save myself if I have to dump Adobe again, just to make sense. And I mainly came for the meeting because of the fonts and the Pantone issue, although I don't use Pantone
to the point where I have to use certain colors. I can specify colors for artwork if I need something that's going to be screen printed or what have you. But with programs like Illustrator, you can create a spot color and then specify the inks once you go to print. And that's mainly what I've had to do. I had to do Pantone enamels at one time, and there were no pickers for that in the software. So I had to use other colors, and then, they were going to decide the colors. So I don't see that in the software for me as that much of a problem, as long as I can specify from something. So if I have a selector or something, but other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm trying to get into surface design, but I've had some health issues the last 2 years. So
you have the Tesla of Macs. So that's kind of good you brought it up, because one of the subjects we haven't brought up yet is the Mac choices, which I put on there as a bullet, because that's something I can talk about. Did you get the Mac? Which display did you get?
I got the 27-inch, the studio display. And
Okay.
actually the Mac Studio I got is with the M1 Max, not the Ultra, because the Ultra is like, I think that's more for video and, cinema and so forth.
Did you get the
But
32 gigs of RAM then and the 500
I got
gigabyte
64.
SSD? Oh, 64. Okay.
I got the 1 terabyte hard drive, and then I'm relying on external drives, which is what I'm used to. I have one for my storage, I have one for work. I have a time machine drive, and then I have one for drag backup. I'm not using a cloud service right now. That may be in the future, but I'm doing what I'm used to.
Well, I suppose like if Matt wants to do a speed test, you can do like a Zoom thing and race each other or something like that to see how the files compare.
That sounds like everything Spike would do to a Mac.
It seems like everything that I'm doing, even my old Mac Pro, it's faster than I am. So I'm not having a problem there. I can't get on the internet on that thing anymore. I mean, I can get on, but I have 2 boot drives on that one. So the later boot drive, the later system software, I can still use the internet, but on the first boot drive that I didn't update, I can't get on the internet anymore. Browsers don't work. But I had, iPad and everything, and it worked out until I needed to change.
All right. Yeah, it makes me like, because you had your Mac, that old Mac for so long, like when you told me you got the Mac Studio, I started thinking of that picture at the keynote presentation of Steve Jobs with hell freezing over.
Well,
yeah, so
you do what
great.
you have to do,
Yeah.
And they didn't have a good choice for me until, and the 27-inch iMacs, I was waiting for, something a little bit more beefed up with that, and they discontinued it. So, and then they came out with the Studio. I was like, yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, so I think the Studio is a good choice. The screen, like, people don't want to pay for it, but it's really nice, and to me, it's like safe. It's a safe purchase.
Yeah.
Plus, you have all the nice camera and speakers and stuff in it too. So it's sort of like expensive but worth it. There still are rumors that the 27-inch 5K iMac might come back with a Apple Silicon in the spring, but I don't know. That could just be wishful thinking by a lot of people. Though there's also supposed to be an upgrade to the Mac Mini. So you could maybe get something that's powerful and not as expensive as a Mac Studio, but is still good for graphic design. So that's kind of where things stand. But I don't know. I have a 2019 27-inch 5K iMac, and it's great, but I don't know. I have no idea whether it's going to be like a collector's item or whether people will want, if they don't come out with a 5K iMac, I can get a good price for reselling it. I'm not sure. How many people here are running Ventura? So just Dave?
I am. It's nice.
Are you?
I'm
also.
I was going to say I'm running it on it's technically 2021, but it's the newest 14-inch MacBook Pro Silicon M2, I think, chip. And to Linda's point, I don't use a big display for the type of work I've done, but it is a lot faster than the Intel-based Macs I was used to. I had been working on a 2013 MacBook Pro, which obviously was Intel-based, but to Christie's earlier point about having to go to a Dell, it was still ran circles around like some brand new Dell that they would try to hand me for certain jobs. Because that, Windows, is bogged down with so much stuff in the background. It just can't compete. So the Macs last much longer. I don't have to tell you guys, and just to keep their value and keep running on. But anyway, it's a lot faster than Intel. I can tell you, even on this MacBook Pro.
I don't know, Christy, do you have any chance of getting a Mac now with your new place? Or you think, how old is your PC?
Last summer or the summer, I can't remember. I have a Lenovo laptop now. It is horrible. The Mac I'm working on right now for this meeting is that one that was Avtron's, and I'm still running this, 15 years old, and it works better than that stupid Lenovo. So I doubt I'm going to get a Mac because they think it's going to cause a problem on the network. That's why they got rid of it in the first place. It's more stable than all your stupid PCs. Come on.
Yeah.
I can't hear you, Henry, whatever you're saying.
Tell the engineers they're full of shit. They don't know how to work with a Mac, because you run terminals on it, and it'll run just like a Windows machine. That works.
Right.
Yeah, the back end, everything else is still connected. I'm doing that right now with my current job, and there's no difference between using a parallel edition of Windows running on a Mac than an actual PC. And plus, you're getting the best of both worlds.
It does run SMB, so it should be fine.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. No,
Right.
They're just engineers are lazy, and they have a bias against Mac.
Okay,
For some reason, I don't know why.
Yeah, so I guess I've been telling my clients to not go to Ventura yet, though I think it's probably fine because I haven't read about any nightmares in the press, our websites I check. But I still like being conservative, so I'm waiting till the next 15.1 comes out, So
I'm actually running a beta, because I'm an early adopter. I'm running a beta, and it's totally stable. It's fine.
it is okay.
I wouldn't
That's
have any
good to know.
qualms. I wouldn't have any qualms about moving to the at least publicly released.
I usually like to not do
Ventura
hundredths
for
of a
everybody.
decimal point. I like to wait till something's at the 10th of a decimal point before I go there.
Mhm.
That's usually my rule of thumb, but I think it's probably okay. I think, it's not, I think it. So if you say that, I would say maybe wait, but if you're brave or it's not, you don't use Creative Cloud that much, it's probably fine to go ahead. Or actually, it's really if you do.
I do.
If you're
Works
not
fine
working
with
for a
Creative Cloud.
corporation, you probably do it because it's your personal computer that you're using.
Works just fine with Creative Cloud. No problem. It's
Okay.
stable. I haven't had it crash at all. Freeze up, nothing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It
so
has some nice
No.
new features to the OS itself. Some nice new features. You might like one called.
yeah, I guess
lets
in your
you
case,
move
Linda,
things
I
out of
would
the way.
try to do it. I mean, I don't know if you could probably go for it now, but you don't want to wait real long because you have that Apple Silicon, so it's gonna, every update is probably gonna take advantage of the processors more than before. So that's kind of if you have an Intel, it doesn't matter as much. But if you have Apple Silicon, I think that helps.
Well, in fact, if you notice, all the Adobe Suite has 2 versions now. If you look at the apps, you can run it
Right.
still as Intel, run it on Silicon. They've optimized the Silicon versions to take advantage of that architecture. And you can tell big
Yeah,
difference, like Photoshop or whatever you're running.
And I think that they're probably gonna, I imagine some libraries are converted for Apple Silicon and some aren't. So as Adobe does these subscription updates, they'll probably continue to get better each version for more code being switched to Apple Silicon. I haven't read that exactly to know for sure exactly where it is, but that's what I'm expecting. So let's see, Ron, I just a message you, so I assume you're still there. So you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me? Hi, everybody. My name is Ron Skozen. I'm a past president of CDPUG. I also started out in the print industry and illustration 30, 40 some years ago. And I transitioned into 3D art and asset creations about 15 years ago. So now I create 3D animations and assets for AR and VR experiences. I'm happy to say I don't use Adobe products anymore. So I have no interest in that at this point, but I just came in to say hi.
Do we answer any questions or things you were interested in, Ron, as far as like topics that we covered?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear where Macs are going and you know what's developing on that end. Being in 3D, everything most is done on a PC side. So if you're using a Mac, you're probably not having a great experience, or you're not able to get all the plugins and all the render engines and things that are available to the 3D artists. But it is still cool to understand, see where it's going and their progress.
How strong is Mac now at 3D? I know Henry was looking into this. Like, they're still getting their butts kicked, or are they getting better?
Well, they've gotten much better, that's for sure. But there are still a lot of companies that make the third-party plugins and render engines. A lot of times now you have to not only use a program, but they no longer come with the render engines. That's something that you have to subscribe additionally to get. The good thing is you have a choice of render engines. The bad thing is you have to pay an additional subscription for that. But that's where it really hits the people. If you're using a Mac, they're not as many available as there are on a PC, and they run great on a PC. So I have no problems at all.
What programs are you referring to that
So
you can't get on a Mac?
A 3DCC that I use is Cinema 4D. And Cinema used to come with, well, it still comes with a couple of render engines, but there are third-party render engines like Redshift or Octane Render or URender, or there's
Boris,
and some of them just aren't available for the Mac. Partly because they spent years developing things, and then when Mac went from, when they go from metal to whatever they did that switch.
Well, they started off with their own proprietary chip called PowerPC, then it went to Intel, now it's back to proprietary again. But
okay.
Their own Mac Silicon M2 chip.
Right. So it usually takes them a couple of years to develop their software program for that. So and they just, everybody now wants an RTX card. They want NVIDIA graphics cards. I've got one of the last MacBook Pros. I think Dave, like yours, a 2013. I paid extra to have an NVIDIA card put in, as opposed to the onboard graphics card. And I'm locked down on, I forget what OS system. It's got to be 5 years old at least, because if I update, I can't use my program on the the graphics card won't work anymore. So that's the big issue, getting the graphics card, getting the more VRAM, all that stuff. We're going to real-time rendering now, which is also used by the GPU rather than the CPU. So graphics cards are very important now for 3D work.
Do you have anything to add to that, Henry, from what you were doing with your 3D stuff that you were doing?
Yeah, I gave up on the Mac a long time ago because everything that we do for like ray tracing has to go with NVIDIA, because they use something that's called CUDA cores, which is totally unavailable. And AMD does not make any cards anymore beyond the ones they made for the little trash can Mac Pros that were out there. And so they're just so far and few between. Even if you can get a video card and its hardware is recognized by a Mac, there are no drivers for it. So your hardware just doesn't recognize them at all. AMD is probably your best choice if you're on a Mac, but you have to jump through so many hoops, it's not even worth it. So so I went to Windows about 5 years ago, and I've never looked back since I went to working with 3D renderings when I did that last presentation last January. It's been so frustrating because I did a lot of my stuff early on the Mac Mini, doing 3D rendering on it when they had NVIDIA cards on it. And even those low-end Macs did a phenomenal job of rendering stuff. But today's stuff is all ray trace, V-Ray, and all that stuff. So unless you have a software program, a 3D program that works exclusively on CPU rendering, like Blender and Mudbox and some of the other stuff, I just put something in the chat box. You'll see it. Those are some of your choices that you can work with. But with the new M1 Macs that are coming out, you have all those GPU cores. So the more cores you have, the more you're going to leverage it, but it's still not the same as actually having a dedicated GPU. Because even if you had 60 cores for GPU rendering on there, they're still not going to run. They're not going to come close to an actual dedicated GPU card, which is what's available on the Windows side. And that's partly because of the fact that there's a lot of game development that goes on PCs. And so that's where all the development's going. That's where all the money is. So the big companies are developing these video cards, which are exactly what you need for 3D rendering. You need a gaming rig to be able to do all this stuff. So that's what Ron was hinting on. So if you're doing AutoCAD or anything else, your only other solution for Macintoshes right now is to upload it and send it to a render farm via the internet. I do that right now for DAZ 3D for my Mac at home. So you could also do it for a low-end laptop or even a portable laptop. If you don't have a dedicated GPU like some of these little tablets, but you have enough memory in them and you only have the Intel Iris graphics in it, like some of the earlier Intels, you just type in a IP address, load it up, and it'll send it on a queue and you can render real time. So that currently is your only solution.
Okay, all right. Well, we've been going on for quite a while. I usually have I appreciate everybody sticking around and keeping up with my attention span, which is I'm a glutton. I'm like a glutton for everything. I like to learn as much as I can and things like that. So I kind of want to sort of start wrapping up. I guess we can stick around and visit, or we can do breakout rooms. So but we can sort of officially end the discussion part of the official discussion part of the program. But I do want to tell you that I'm the director of programming, and I do have a January topic scheduled. It's the last Thursday. It's going to be a hybrid meeting. It'll be the last Thursday in January, and Drive Savers, which is a data recovery company in San Francisco that rescues things from like 9/11 and things like that, that they're going to tell us about what they do in their labs. So that's what I have for January. I guess, Mark, can you hear us now? So your microphone's muted, if you can turn that on. But Mark and I are on the nominating committee for CDPUG. Mary is stepping down as president, and right now we are going to be looking for officers and our committee people and someone to be president for next year. So keep an eye out for an email campaign or survey about this. And I guess I wanted Mary. I guess Mary, you said you'll stay on as vice president to help someone make that transition.
That is correct.
So I guess I wanted just if anyone. I guess you can't do the Three Stooges thing or whatever it is in the movies where take one step forward and everybody else takes a step backwards, I guess. But if anyone wants to offer to run for president or volunteer to be president for next year, we would be very grateful for that. So you can say something now, or you can get in touch with me or Mark. I guess, Mark, you want to introduce yourself? Because I guess, can you hear us now, or is your microphone working?
Yeah, I'm Mark Midland, past president. I don't do a lot of graphic design anymore. I basically am a photographer and I manage music bands. So I do some of our ads, and that's about it. At the beginning, when I could hear some of what was going on with the Affinity, just as a side note, that's pretty much all I use. I don't do a lot of manipulation of photos. 95% of my stuff is just color correction, cropping, straightening, but I'm going for what I saw in my eye and the camera. That's what I want out there. So, like you say, I'm not removing objects here and there. So that's what I use.
You don't use Lightroom for managing your libraries?
No, Lightroom is an absolute system hog. It slows down to a crawl. And even though, if I shoot maybe 2,000 shots in a weekend, it gets painful to sort through them. And when I'm trying to crank them out Like when I shoot a show and I've been on site for 12 hours photographing bands, then I have to go to the hotel and knock out about 15 photos. The last thing I want to do is be slugging away through it and taking hours. So I actually use Capture One. It's much more powerful, runs better if anybody else needs this kind of thing. Although they've kicked up a hornet's nest because they're going from perpetual licenses to subscription. But not only that, they're kind of screwing over some of their old users, and it's getting ugly in the forums. So,
How
but
about
that's
you,
what I
Matt?
use.
What do you use? Because Matt's a photographer also. I never really had any conversations with you about Capture One because I don't really know anything about it.
No, I haven't used Capture One. I'm a Lightroom guy, but it is a big hog. It's pretty much annoying. If I'm loading or files, I'll do it like overnight, you know. I also have on one photo raw. I've been playing around with that, thinking about jumping over for a library. I mean, I'm just so good in Lightroom. I'm just so comfortable with it. It is the most recent version though is pretty darn quick. It's getting better.
Well, how many?
But that is the
images do you-
biggest thing. People are complaining about it in the big photography world. It's like this Lightroom, you got to do something about it. So I don't think it's going to be much longer before we see a big change there. I hope.
How
Is the
many
web
images
version
do
any
you
better?
normally have in your
On
catalog?
a given weekend, I shoot sports and I'll do on an average 1,000.
Okay, we're in the same ballpark area.
Yeah, 800 to 1,000.
And you don't have a
it'll take
real.
a good, like, what did I do it? I think I timed it once. It was like, it's, for making previews and stuff like that, that's where you really get, like, a lot of times I don't use a lot of the features of, I'm not going to be remote editing like maybe you would. Mark,
I
you know what
have
I mean?
to.
I come home, I sit on my images, I throw the card in later, I dump it to the hard drive, and then a couple of days later, I fire them into Lightroom and I just let them sit. But yeah, rendering previews, one-to-ones like that, I minimize everything in Lightroom because I really don't care to work remote. So
I mean, when I'm shooting out at Lakeland, the one festival, that's great. I can
Yeah.
come home and work on it, but in Indianapolis or North Carolina,
yeah,
I have to have it in the hotel. So I actually have a 2 terabyte SSD drive
Yeah.
because I can do the session on that. And then when I'm finished, bring it home and just suck that into my whole catalog. And
Yeah.
it keeps all the adjustments and all the.
I like some of the
keywords.
things that On One does. Like I said, I haven't done the capture, but I On One came out a few years back, and I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was really cool. I recommended it to a lot of photographers that were novice and they didn't want to do a subscription to Adobe that were, taking photos of the same sport events that I was. They were just kind of getting into photography, and they're like, what do you recommend? And I said, here's a real simple solution: the Lightroom. And they said I Want Photo Raw was going to be kind of like this Lightroom killer. I don't see it being that. I like it for
No.
the fact that if you're just getting into photography, there is a boatload of filters in there for you filter freaks out there that are photographers that just want to bang, through your photos and knock some clarity and some color correction, and that it's wonderful for that. But I want more control over the file itself. So, but yeah, Lightroom is just, I'm kind of tied down to it. So.
Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna motion that we adjourn the meeting because otherwise we'll just keep talking all night about moving one topic to another. But if you want to stick around, I'd like to talk shop longer. So but I don't want to I don't want to have a
stick
bad
around.
reputation of going on all night either. 'Cause I guess it's maybe my equivalent of being a party animal. Zoom CDPUG meetings going long.
Is there any other topic that anybody else wanted to bring up that we haven't touched
Oh,
bases
yeah,
on?
good
or is
question,
this-
Henry. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, or is this a lot that we already covered? Is everybody satisfied with what we covered tonight? And was it worth it to come to this meeting tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
guess